Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles. My name is Danny De Lillo. I am delighted to be joined in this virtual experience with Madeleine and Dusty. Hello, how you doing?
Hi, really good, thanks.
They are joining us from Toronto to have a wonderful celebration of amazing Canadian filmmaking talent and Canadian films as part of our July Film Festival. It's been fantastic. He made a very, very incredible film called Chubby. I loved it so much, but for those that haven't seen it, let's take a look at the clip.
At a barbecue for ages.
You're making this huge overblown story.
No.
Conflating
That's
it with
my
the time
point.
that your father
No,
started
that's
that
my
fire
point.
at Naomi. You said that already.
If it was a sensitive fire alarm, then it would be easy to convince you that it was just toast. So when you came downstairs and were like, why is it smoky? And Noah said it was toast. You believed him. That's the point. There was a You sound like an idiot.
I have so many questions. I don't know where to begin, but I just want to get started again for those that haven't seen it. Tell us a brief synopsis of your film.
Yeah, so Chubby is about a 10-year-old girl who's struggling with the residual trauma of her sexual assault.
I think honestly, your film is one of the most important short films I've ever seen, because I think what people have a perception of what one has experienced sadly through that, they have an idea of it. And I think they don't realize just how subtle the experience can be. And it's not always suddenly how you almost imagine it or how we are being perceived in the media. And I think it's an absolutely brilliant take and story, not to mention fantastically acted. Where did the inspiration come for you in creating this project?
Yeah, so the story is very personal to me. And Dusty and I had started working together, and actually before we even started working together, we were both filmmakers on our own, working separately, and actually Dusty really encouraged me to tell this story. And I wasn't ready at all. I didn't feel like it was something that I could tell, but I thought about it so much, and then we ended up making 2 short films together, and it was a really amazing experience. And I kept thinking about the conversation that we'd had, where Dusty was like, you need to tell this story, you should make this into a film. And finally I was like, well, how about we write and direct it together? Because we were such good friends, and he really understood where I was coming from, and I felt like he was the right person to tell it with.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a strong story, and I love the way that it was shot, because it really kind of captured the darkness of it all. But just how in what appears to be normal circumstances, in moments of when one may be with somebody else, how quickly these things can happen, and how they can happen so under the radar, but right close to the eyes of many people in family. I thought it was just articulated so well. Was that something both when you were writing this together that you kind of wanted to put it out there? This is not like the story of how I felt like we've seen in so many films. You took it in a way that I've never seen before, which I thought was incredible.
Yeah, I think for us, what was really important was showing the abuse of power within sibling relationships, and how trust is built and then quickly destroyed. And I think just focusing on the relationship between the brother and the sister, and seeing her admiration for him, and how much she seeks his approval, and how that really plays a major role in how he is able to manipulate her the way he does. And I think that was the manipulation and power dynamics were really critical in the writing process.
Yeah, and also we really wanted to capture the idea of how it kind of sneaks up on her. What's really happening, how she's lulled into this sense of security, because obviously she's with a person who she trusts and loves, okay. And then suddenly it becomes this nightmare, just like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'll be blatantly honest. I have certainly also it's personal to me when I was a child as well, of something happening like that to me. And I, you know, like her, I remember just being a happy-go-lucky person, just full of life. And I thought the lead that you chose for this part was, she's like the next Jennifer Lawrence. Like, she is phenomenal. And her articulation and just her freedom and her acting ability was incredible. But I thought she told the story really well and really realistic through her lens. Tell us a bit more about her and how you cast someone, and how do you go about as well writing, you know, and directing someone for this role, because it can't be easy.
Yeah, casting was so important. We spent months trying to find the right young girl. We saw hundreds of kids, and there was just no one really right for it. And at one point, we almost decided not to make the movie because we knew it kind of hinged on the perfect actor. And then Madeleine put out a call to some friends who work as teachers at
like this after-school acting program.
Yeah, so we're trying to find kids that are kind of under the radar, that, you know, might not even know of audition calls to even post for them.
Yeah.
And we found Maya through this one children's workshop.
She'd not acted in anything before. She was just doing acting for fun after school. Wow. And I saw her picture when I got the email, and Dusty was in the dentist, and I was pacing up and down outside the dentist waiting for him to come out, because I was like, this just looks like her. Like, we hadn't even seen her act yet, but she looked so perfect.
And she was actually on a trip with her family in Montenegro, so we had to audition her. Well, her mom sent us a clip. And really, what impressed us wasn't the actual reading of the sides. It was her mom chose to include like a blooper reel of her goofing around with her brother, and it was all the false takes. And it was in the false takes that we saw, oh, that's magical. If we can get her to that part of her personality to come through, she's got so much charisma and charm that it was just perfect for the role. And so really, we cast her because of that blooper reel.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, how do you go about, because listen, it's very tough because there's so many, there's personal elements to it. There's also, you're writing, you're also working with a minor, all those things. Like, how do you go about, you know, kind of directing something as like this? What are the trials and tribulations? I thought you did it really fantastically well, and I can only imagine she was a dream to work with, but what was that kind of experience like for you both?
Yeah, it was really, it required a lot of energy, I think, because we felt like the way we were going to get her to be herself and to be natural wasn't to kind of give her directions in the way that we'd normally direct people. It was sort of like just getting her to a stage of being totally comfortable.
Yeah, comfort and trust is really important. So I think we had some time where we got to rehearse with her, and also at the same time build a trusting relationship with her mother, who was present during those times. And I think that it allowed us to get to know them, share our story and why this was personal to us, why we wanted to tell it, how we wanted to tell it. And at the same time, just getting really comfortable in the same space so that when we got to filming, we weren't strangers. And she trusted us, but I think also just removing all the technical elements from the filmmaking process. So we filmed with all natural lights. It was a handheld camera, and we shot actually most of the film with a 100mm lens, which means the camera was really far away from her.
Yeah.
And we filmed really long 20-minute takes. And I think just giving her space to be herself and giving her permission to fail and make mistakes, and encouraging her to make mistakes, I think really just set her mind at ease. I think the first hour and a half on set on the first day
was scary.
Very
scary. I think really intimidating for her.
Yeah, and nerve-wracking because we realized, okay, something's got to change here, otherwise we're not going to make this movie. Yeah. And then suddenly she kind of let go, and it was just magic. And really it was just about, you know, Adam, our cinematographer, capturing these beautiful moments. That scripted and completely improvised.
Yeah, I think so much of it too was building that relationship between her and the other actor, Jesse, who plays Noah. and just getting them to really kind of like riff off each other in between takes and play games with each other. And
Jesse was enormously valuable, and often we would direct Maya through Jesse. So we would whisper something into his ear. She would have no clue what the direction was, but that would incite
a natural reaction from her.
So that she's not in her head or intellectualizing the performance, and it could be quite raw and natural. And they, you know, just filming, we shot the film for 5 days, and they were together, I think, for three days. And then when he left, she just started crying because she had built like an emotional attachment to this person, acting with them in these scenes for 3 days. And in fact, when she was crying at the end of the film, those are like her real tears of like missing Jesse.
Yeah.
It was her first.
We didn't plan that at all. No. It just happened that we were shooting that scene where she comes to the mum and that takes it all back, and that was, she was really upset.
Wow. Well, it's nice that you have such a family close, you know, a nice family set of just having a great celebratory of filmmaking. That's really exciting. I think that you mentioned about the cinematography. I thought it was wonderfully shot, almost so eerily shot. I felt uncomfortable the way that it was shot, which I'm sure was on purpose. You know, tell us a bit more about the style, about how you shot it, because it really was brilliant. And what were some of the things you kind of wanted our audience to feel?
Yeah, so one thing we really wanted was a sort of impressionistic feeling throughout the film. And, you know, what was important to us was trying to capture this idea of like residual trauma and trying to tell the story all through her point of view. And there was something painterly about it that we were really interested in.
Something like sensuous, like we really wanted to demonstrate how trauma is experienced through all the senses. So with sound and with touch and with sight, like all of these things can trigger these feelings and bring them to the surface again. And
one thing we were trying to accomplish was this feeling of intimacy and claustrophobia, but while seeing a lot. So normally when you see close-ups, you see the face and you don't get to see the environment so much in the backgrounds. So we wanted to try to see lots in the background, but have the characteristics of a long lens, which compresses everything and feels claustrophobic. And we were able to achieve that by shooting the whole film 8K. So because we had this enormous resolution, we could actually use these very long lenses in small spaces, and you still see a lot, but it's got that characteristic of really crushing everything and making everything very soft and kind of dreamlike. And so, that was a really important element. I think also just we had to keep adding energy into the camera, so we knew that the camera needed to kind of feel like that sense of tension and unease that she was feeling throughout. And so often we would encourage our cinematographer Adam to add more energy, add more movement, so that it almost felt chaotic and unhinged. You feel, like you said, you feel uncomfortable.
And a bit nauseating as well.
At times, And it was, you know, Adam is like rock solid, as he's a human tripod, we had to keep saying, no, like add tons of motion, tons of movement, so that you feel like this world is almost, you know, rocking.
I felt all those things, so it worked. Trust me, it really did. I really honestly think your film should be seen by many, 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 many people worldwide, because I think whether you've been a victim of it, or you know someone that's been through it, or you suspect someone may be going through it, which is equally as important. I think the way that you created and made this film was extremely realistic to a lot of people's situations, but if not, at least you can empathize and educate yourselves, you know, on top of that. I mean, what did you want your audience to take from your film? Because I got so much from it, but I really would love to know what you wanted them to feel, and what kind of moralities you wanted them to sort of understand from what you created.
I think it's so complex, this issue, and we were thinking about the film, we were writing it during the middle of all of the Me Too stuff that was coming out and people starting to talk about sexual assault. But one thing that we both noticed people weren't really talking about was sexual assault when it's not a stranger, when it's not someone at your work, when it's someone who is so close to you. It's so much more uncomfortable. I think it's just really, people still have a real icky factor about talking about this. And it happens so often. And I think it just creates more shame and more silence around the issue, that people feel like they can't open up about it and talk about it because it's someone in your family or someone that you also love as well as feel betrayed by. So I think that was very, very important to both of us to get people talking about that.
And I think the whole point with the ending of the film, seeing that she retracts her confession, is to show that she is so worried about destroying her family. She's so worried about these consequences that she tries to undo what she has said. And the point of that is not to create any confusion about did it happen or did it not happen. Of course it happened, but look at the toll that it's taking on this young girl, and look at how responsible she feels, and the shame she feels, and the guilt that she feels. And I think that's really important. And hopefully we can get an audience who's not experienced something like this to be able to empathize with this character, and hopefully be a little bit more open and receptive to those around them that maybe might have experienced it, and encourage people to talk about it, because I think it's really important to share your stories if you've experienced abuse like this. And I think so much of it is unspoken. And I think, we discovered just through making the film how many friends and family members have experienced similar things just because we were talking about it. And I think that's really important.
I think the way you you took us on the journey with the family was very, very important. A lot of what I was feeling watching it was a lot of what not was said. Like there was a lot of things that weren't spoken about, and you can be angry at them for a while and how they're approached. And I think there's also something to learn in there about, if someone close to you is experiencing this, how do you approach it? What is the right way, and how do you follow through in supporting someone that, that you love, that is going through this, or equally someone who has done this? How do you work with that? I love the way that you did it, because it felt very realistic to a lot of families who don't know how to deal with it. Was that something that you kind of also wanted to put out there as well? Because I think you did that very effectively as well.
Yeah, very much so. I think I think both of us have a lot of empathy for both sides, and especially living through something like this. Obviously, it's really hard when two people in your family have something like this happen, and you want to unconditionally love the person that's the perpetrator, and you have love for them and you care about them, but they've also done this horrible thing. And I think in the end, what we want to say is kind of, there is room for caring about someone, but also just being honest about what's happened and open about the truth. And that's the only way to really move forward, is through honesty.
Yeah, no, I think it was wonderful. And so I'm so glad that you made this film. I can't tell you how much it means a lot to people that have been through it, and it certainly will help and understand the people that haven't been through it, that can at least empathize with it, and a very powerful piece. And so congratulations on you both for that. What is next for you both?
Right. So we received financing for our first feature through this new program in Canada called the Telefilm's Talent to Watch. So it's for emerging first-time feature filmmakers.
Very good. We
shot our first feature actually last summer for 3 months in the mountains in Quebec. And
amazing.
It's a psychological horror about a woman who comes to her small town to see her sister, who she hasn't seen in a really long time.
Yeah, she's kind of nursing her wounds on the edge of a breakup, and she's really kind of looking for her sister to take care of her.
Yes.
But then what happens is she ends up being quite viciously betrayed by her sister and by her brother-in-law, and decides that her only recourse is revenge. So it's
wow.
Goes on a crusade for revenge.
And Madeleine stars in the film.
Oh, excellent.
So she's the main woman. And the film really focuses on the 48 hours that lead up to the betrayal and the 48 hours that lead up to the revenge. And these two timelines are interwoven in a nonlinear way that tracks her emotional, psychological unraveling.
Kind of similar to Chubby in a way where the one narrative informs the other. So you're getting an idea of who these characters are, and then you see something that happened previously that makes you recontextualize it and see them in a new way.
Yeah.
Wow, I love your artistic vision. I think you're such a great team, and I'm already visualizing your next film because I know the kind of journey of experience and the cleverness that you have together. So I'm so glad that you're making this for us. You're also really, I'm very inspired by what you make, and I also want to add to anyone out there that has ever gone through an experience like Chubby or knows someone to please never hesitate to contact someone if you're still suffering from something like that. Then there's always conversation, communication is the key to find someone you can trust to talk to. But I want to finish up for this, and maybe something you've learned from making Chubby, or something that you know as filmmakers. For anyone out there that aspires to be in both of your footsteps, do you have any advice you could share with any filmmakers out there as well? Something you go by in your worlds?
Yeah, I think advice would be to make a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And make things cheaply if you can. But I think it's really through the process of making that you learn about what it means, about storytelling, about filmmaking, about visual storytelling techniques. And I think that for us, it was about trying to make a short film a year. And that was like a little benchmark for us. And through the course of doing that, I think we've developed our skills and our voice. And I would just say, make a lot of stuff and write a lot of stuff. And that's more important than networking. I think a lot of young filmmakers get really, they're told about networking, and then they get so excited about that idea. And then they
forget about actually creating.
Yes.
But I think also my main advice would be work with your friends.
Yes.
That's been so important. Work with people that you really care about, because you're going to be putting in long hours, and it's going to get intense, and you're going to be working really hard. And if you've got people around you that you really love, then it makes it a lot more fun.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, listen, thank you both. Keep making more movies for us. Thank you for Chubby, and we're looking forward to seeing these very exciting features. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madeleine, everybody.